If you're tired of the standard business and marketing fundamentals, frameworks, and funnels, you need a little mischief. Get ready to turn up the volume on the CEO Mischief Maker podcast, where you access conversations with seasoned business owners who have smashed through mindset barriers, innovated the standard boring business and marketing playbooks, and executed future-paced strategies with bleeding-edge tools and tactics to micro-fail their way into massive success and growth. We are Mindset Impact Strategic Catalysts helping innovative entrepreneurs focus. We are CEO Mischief Makers. Ready to make a little mischief? Hey, CEO Mischief Makers, MKJ here, and I get to introduce you to a gentleman I've had a couple of conversations with, and I cannot wait for you to meet, because I have a feeling we're going to have a very interesting adventure together. Jim Fuhs. Hey, Jim. How you doing?
Great, MK. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yay. All right. So let's just start off with, I know you. I know a lot of interesting things about you, but people in the audience might not. So tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm a retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel. I've been retired for about 15 years from the Marines. And since that time, I've gone through some different things, everything from divorce to kids getting out of high school and college to starting my own business. And at first it was government contract consulting, but then in about 2016, I switched over into the marketing space. And then right about 2018, right before I got remarried, I started doing live streaming video. And now that's led to remote production work. That's led to podcasting, being a part of the Amazon Influencer Program, working with different tech companies and products, and really just wanting to help others succeed, especially in the small business space. And so living in Atlanta, Georgia now, love being in a big city. It's funny because I grew up in the DC area, not realizing being in rural Eastern North Carolina, how much I was missing out on until I moved here. And it's like, I don't know that I want to go back to the small town stuff ever again.
Yeah. I know. My story of we sold our house, and my whole goal was to go and live in a city because I've lived in the rural area. I was raised on a ranch, right? I went out and got my horse and rode, out into the fields and, got cattle and fed calves. And I even had a job as a wrangler on a ranch where I'd round up cattle and round up sheep and take out horseback rides. And rural is, I know real well. Lived that a lot, most of my life. Lived in the suburbs the rest of the time. I'm really ready for the urban life. I really, really am. Unfortunately, that's kind of put on hold for another reason, medical reasons within my family, not within me. And so I've got to, kind of calm that itch a little bit until I can actually do it. But I agree with you. You don't really know. I've only visited, right? When I've traveled different places and visited different places, I always go into the cities, into Rome, right? Into London, into Paris. I can't say Bergen, Norway is a very big city. It's the second largest city in Norway, but still, and it has a lot of the same characteristics of a city because it is the second largest. But I'm drawn to that because I want that culture. I want that energy now. Maybe I need it more now that I'm getting older. Who knows? I need something to pick me up. Yeah, who knows? But anyway, yay, Atlanta. I had one of my sons lived in Atlanta. Love that city. I love Piedmont Park. I mean, it's just the whole area, Midtown, downtown. I love it. But I want to talk about, going from government contractors, which makes sense coming out of the military, to small business is a huge change. And it is that they work completely. They're like two different animals. They work completely differently. What kind of mindset shift, or first off, why did you want to do that? And what kind of mindset shift did you have to accept in order to speak those two different languages?
Well, I would say part of it was that I'd always wanted to have my own business. And I think part of the reason why I even went into, if you want to say, post military career into the government sector was because, like you said, well, that's what I was already familiar with. But at the same time, and even right now we're seeing it, right? The government in some aspects as a government contractor, however you want to put it, isn't reliable from the perspective of things are always changing, not always in a good way, right? Budgets get cut, things that you thought were going to make you money go away. And so even though that's a risk with small business, in some aspects, there's so many small businesses that need help, especially in the marketing field. Because even when you look at things like Google My Business, which is free, there's still like over half of the companies have never claimed their free location, and they wonder why people can't find them. There's still a lot of dynamics of change going on, and so I've always enjoyed tech. I've enjoyed learning. I think that's part of, as we get older, we have to realize that life is about continuous learning. And once we stop doing that, I think that's when, in a sense, we start to die, right? That's my perspective. And I've seen that with people, unfortunately. And so I like that idea of like, okay, what's next? What can I learn? Like, how do we, break this down, do it differently? And so for me, especially in the digital marketing space, seeing how much things have changed and even how the platforms change. It's like 2018, everybody needed to go live on Facebook. 2024, if you go live on Facebook, you're lucky if you have 20 people see it. And so how do you get that content out there to do things? And really, in some aspects, the fundamentals, right, the blocking and tackling are the same no matter what you're doing in marketing. And so part of it is like figuring out what your message is. And so one of the things over time that I've discovered, and also with the help of my friend Chris Stone that I do Dealcasters with, is really we're all problem solvers, right? And so it's not, I get it. There's all these, sales gurus, and you should cold call and you should do this and do that. But the reality is, how do you advertise to people that you can solve their problem? And so for me, that's been, part of it. And I think, especially from a mindset standpoint, being in the Marines, we have to be able to adapt and overcome. Over these last, really, I guess, 3-4 years, we'll say, from COVID, that's where we saw a lot of failure happen in businesses because they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to adjust. And I'm sure you've heard this too, is right. Usually the first thing people cut when they're cutting their budget is their marketing. And that's the mistake they make because they don't understand the value of getting their message out there.
Right. But I agree 100%. But I still need to understand how you went from that government contractor, because that just what I know, never worked for the government, never. The only thing I have as a reference point is my husband was a tax accountant and we lived in a government town in the state of California, in Sacramento. And the majority, 80% of his clients were government employees, whether they were actual government employees, school teachers, firefighters, police officers. They were all getting their paycheck from the taxpayer. And that is a different mentality. It is a very different mentality than an entrepreneur or a small business owner or someone working not for the government and not for an Amazon or a large corporation where they can hide in the woodwork, right? Because it's such a huge company. That's a very different, and I'm sorry if people listening to my voice are getting offended. It's just the way it is.
It's true.
The way it is.
So I think for me, it's that whole idea of, you sometimes hear people like say, well, if you're starting a second job, right, or second, whatever, you want to start a business, don't quit your first job until you've got that income. Well, the benefit I had is because I had retired from the military, I have an income.
Right.
So I was able to take that risk because at least I had that cushion of,
Right.
I still get paid the first of every month, whether I make, a bunch of sales or no sales. And part of it was being able to get into that mindset of like, it's okay for people to say no. It's okay to not feel like, oh, I've got to get every person I talk to accept my proposal, because I think that's where people get frustrated, because they're like, well, I can't get anyone to buy this. And sometimes I think we're chasing the wrong people. We cut our prices because, oh, I got to get business in, as opposed to, this is what I'm worth, and I'm not going to settle for less, because I've been through this before, where I took on clients that I didn't charge them as much as I probably should have, and I regretted it. And so
Yes.
I think, you have to be prepared for that things aren't always going to go in a straight line. I think it's kind of those things we see, right? The iceberg, and the path to success is not a straight line. I mean,
Right.
I've been doing this for 8 years, and I'm still learning and changing, and figuring out, like, well, what is it I want to do? How do we shift? I mean, I originally was doing social media management,
Yeah.
and I can honestly say that that's extremely challenging, because if you're doing it for someone, they have to be an active participant. They can't
Oh,
just
yeah.
say, hey, MK, what's your company? All right, I'm just going to create all this social content, because if I don't know your business, it's not going to work out, or the time frame. Like, they expect things to happen overnight, and it's like, it's going to take months
Yeah.
to build that stuff up. So those are some of the
Yeah.
things that I've kind of learned along the way. And I was a business major, so at least I had that background from my undergrad and master's thing. So it wasn't like I was an engineer and decided, oh, I'm going to go into business.
Into marketing, yeah.
Right.
Big difference. I didn't expect to go this direction, but I think it's a very valid point right now. I mean, we live in a time when many people, and I'm not saying I'm one of them, because I'm not, but many people are saying this Gen Z and some of the millennials and this Gen Alpha that's coming up are all, quote, entitled, and they just expect everything, and they expect everyone to coddle to their blah blah blah. Right? I raised two sons, 22 and 25 now. I didn't coddle them. Of course, don't want them to experience pain. Of course, I don't want them to have to struggle, but I know they're going to have to. Everybody has to. So how? And this is a long-winded way to ask you this question, but I think you've shifted this mindset sufficiently to go from, I've got a paycheck, I don't have to worry, I don't have to think about it. As a retired person coming out of the military, you didn't have to go and make yourself work your ass off to try and find clients and try and build a business and use some of that income to fund that business, whether it succeeds or not, because you have to do that. You didn't have to do that. You could have just said, oh, cushy, great, I'll just keep contracting with the government, or I'll find another job that's kind of part-time. And, you could have done that. And unfortunately, many people think that these generations coming up are of that mentality, of that mindset, that it's expected that I have a job. It's expected that I have this. And like I said, I'm not saying I agree with that. There's definitely a shift and a difference in the coming up generations. But I think there are other factors and other issues with that, and mostly deal with technology. But you didn't do that. What was that mindset shift to go from that I'm taken care of, not entitled, but you know what I mean by entitled, and I'm entitled to this because I worked for it and I put in my time and I have my retirement, which is of course the purpose for that. But now I'm just going to hang out.
Well, I think I would get bored. I think it would be very difficult, even having an income, to just do nothing, or, to go play golf every day. I think at some point you'd be like, well, I need more purpose. I think that was part of it, is having a purpose. And so for me, the purpose was, I want to help other people succeed. I see people around me struggling in their business. And, I think even growing up as not only as an athlete, but as a coach and a father, right? We're always like training those people to better themselves so that they can succeed. And that's where I get a lot of satisfaction, is seeing other people succeed. I don't need, it's funny. I sometimes joke, and, with my wife, is, I always find it interesting as an example when these people are like, hey, vote for our business to be the best of this or the best of that. And we also find out sometimes that even if they get the most votes, that they got to pay for that award.
Yeah.
Right? People that write for Forbes are actually paying to write for Forbes. And so it's not really genuine. I almost call it disingenuous. And so I don't need, accolades and everything else. Now, maybe that's because I had a very successful military career and I had awards through that, but that's just me. My ego doesn't require me to feel like I need to, be, lauded on by society. I'm more interested in, being close with my children and my spouse as opposed to worrying about what other people think of me. And I think sometimes that's also kind of the Marine Corps mindset is, we just want to get the job done. I'm not here to, win friends and influence people, as a famous purpose once said. Here to make people, succeed and do and part of it is do what's right? Do the right thing. Yes. And so I think that for me is kind of what really drove it. Is I felt like I want to do something that I can keep doing as long as I want to. And then if I don't like it, I can, the nice thing is I can walk away. Right. I don't have to sell my business. The nice thing about having a business like this is it doesn't have necessarily a lot of assets other than like the tech gear that I use to do certain things. But it's not like I don't have a office building and I'm not paying all this overhead. And I think that's the other thing.
Okay, hold on. If your mindset was shifted, you were inspired to innovate, and you were spurred into action, don't just move on with your day. Focus, my friend, and take a few minutes to visit CEOmischiefmaker.com to learn more about the value that was shared with you today. Please act now and create some CEO mischief of your own.